In this CBT nugget, we're going to be looking at the planning of the transport security. This is when your email is crossing the transport pipeline. Is there anything that we want to do to it? And you probably have worked with this, the transport rules and such in Exchange before, but we want to take a kind of a planning view of corporate compliance and how that would apply to our own environments and the things that we want to make sure that we're doing for that transport security. We don't want anything leaking out of our company that shouldn't be, and we certainly don't want to be sending out like social security numbers and things like that. So this is where we're going to start this process to take care of this. Actually, it's going to be a couple of videos, but this is the first part. So let's start with our regular old-fashioned transport security. It might look like a short agenda, but actually we have a lot to talk about. Starting off with identifying the compliancy requirements that you might face at your company. Now, the compliancy requirements may be legal or lawful requirements that your industry has, or it just may be some requirements that you as a company have decided to do. And so we want to take a look at how you want to identify those and the different ways that, or the options that you have to implement those. There's several different options. Transport rules are just part of that process. Speaking of those transport rules, Yep, looky. We want to plan out some of those transport rules. I'm sure you've created some transport rules before, but I actually want to demonstrate this to you. I want to stop, take a few moments to show you some transport rules, give you a couple of demonstrations in here along with the planning stuff so that you can see, well, some of the options that are available. I don't know if you've had a chance to explore some of the things that you can do with transport rules, and I want to get you in that exploration kind of mode. Also, we're going to take a look at message moderation. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to, excuse me. That doesn't mean that you're going to moderate how many messages you send. The joke would have been much funnier. No, it was never going to be funny. Message moderation. Don't drink and message kind of thing. Yeah, I know. No, this is where you may have things like distribution lists, especially large distribution lists. And when somebody sends an email to it, you want somebody to approve it before that email gets sent. I also want to stop by and talk a little bit about planning your journaling. Now, not everybody has this requirement, but if you do, Exchange does have the components to do journaling. And I want to make sure that you don't get confused between journaling and this other thing, if I can spell it, archive. Archiving and journaling are two different things, and so we kind of want to make sure that we do separate what those things are. Well, what do you say we get started with, well, identifying some of our compliancy requirements and what this all really means? Almost 2 decades ago when I started into messaging, I considered email, and I'm trying to draw a little mail thing there. There you go. I considered email to be one of the most powerful tools in the world, and it has definitely become one, right? I mean, you can't go throughout the day without dealing with email. You send it, you receive it, we communicate by it, our companies communicate by it, everybody uses email, and it's the sending of this email out into that vast internet that is both a very powerful tool and can also be a real dangerous tool. As has been proven over and over and over again, we don't always have control or know what people are sending, and things like credit card numbers and social security numbers, all those kind of things, corporate confidential information, all of that kind of stuff is just horribly damaging if it gets out into the wrong hands. So how do we take control over this? Well, fortunately, Exchange 2013 gives you a great set of tools for taking control of this. Now, if you come from Exchange 2010, even 2007, you had some really good tools for this. But now we have excellent ones to really help us with this, compliance. That's what my intent was. Because here's the thing, when you set out to come up with a set of compliancy standards, it's not you that's going to figure this out. There's a lot of factors that involve this, such as, are there already existing laws that govern your industry? And I like to use HIPAA as an example because everybody, as soon as you say HIPAA, everybody goes, oh yeah, HIPAA. There's all kinds of compliancy requirements that you must follow that have already been defined for you. Well, that's actually easier. If somebody's already made the definition for you, it's easier to set it up. But If you don't have a definition of what your compliancy requirements are, that's when it becomes a little bit more challenging. Not all companies do. Some companies don't fall under a set of laws already, but they still want to have good messaging compliancy. Now, this can involve, and this is what my scales of justice were also for, this is going to involve legal folks, because it's definitely a legal issue. So you can have lawyers involved in this. You may have very specific risk mitigation people employed for this, or risk auditors, or compliancy auditors. Auditors. I'm trying to spell everything correctly. That you may need to work with for your compliancy requirements. In other words, you're not going to be alone, or let me put it this way, you shouldn't be alone in trying to identify what your compliancy requirements are. Now, to kind of help identify the compliancy requirements, it kind of also helps to know what you can do. And if you've been working with Exchange 2013, you already know that there are a lot of things that you can do. That you can do things like you could add disclaimers. Now, what do you think the odds are me being able to spell the word disclaimer? Disclaimers. Oh, I think I did it. You can add disclaimers to your messages, which gives you some legal coverage, but that doesn't actually prevent the email from going somewhere. And so what you can also do is you can restrict or block email. You can restrict it so that maybe you have some email, and under certain conditions, it's not allowed to go outside of the company. It's just not outside. It's not allowed to go outside of the company. Or you may want to block messages, and I like this, blocking messages that contain particular information. Maybe like, if there's a social security number in there, ooh, that needs to get blocked. And maybe I need to get a message about that. We need to tackle that user for doing that. Maybe you want to restrict how messages get handled, whether they can be forwarded to certain people or not. And you want to be able to block them or block them from certain domains that you don't want them to go to. All of these kind of things that you want to be able to do with your email, well, the answer is yes, you can. You can. In Exchange 2013, you do this with, and I'm just going to make a box here. Dun, da, 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 da. Do this with transport rules. Now, here's one of the funny things: is this is really what the focus, oddly enough, is for this particular video, because transport rules actually ties in a lot of different technologies of setting up these rules to do compliancy with. Now, it used to be, and let me give you an example. It used to be like in Exchange 2007 or in Exchange 2010, you had to go through and manually create every single transport rule that you wanted. Well, there's some really cool features in Exchange 2013, both on premises and the one in the cloud, Exchange Online, that really help you do this much faster. Now, one of the things that I want to do is I want to break this down for you. I want to show you transport rules and show you. I want to encourage you to explore transport rules, to see all of the different things that you can do. But I also want to show you some rapid ways that you can deploy your particular company's compliance requirements. Because if you already have some legal established requirements in Exchange 2013, they made that a lot easier for you to implement. So transport rules are how we're going to enforce things. Now, we can add our own to this. We can customize this with stuff called like, we can add our own tags on. Let's do a message classifications. This is really metadata that you can add to an email and let your users make decisions or create additional transport rules for these. So I want to show you those as well, because that'll help out in ways for you to enforce your compliancy. Something that we're going to do an entire video on in and of itself is ADRMS, the Active Directory rights management stuff. That is definitely a tie-in piece to Exchange that you're going to want to consider. And even when we're in the screens, the demonstrations today, you'll see a little note that says, consider using ADRMS. But also one of my favorite things that I want to show you, and this is what really I have found to be a huge help in Exchange 2013, is, everything's done through a transport rule, but I tell you what, creating them quickly and easily, I'm going to show you, and I'm writing it really small down here, DLP. Data loss prevention. DLP is awesome feature for Exchange 2013. So not only are there things that you want to be able to do, and you need to be aware of what all those things are, but how we're going to do it. And it really comes back to boiling down to is it's all part of a transport rule somehow, except for the ADRMS stuff. So, well, I tell you what, since we're here, let's go ahead and start by working with planning out and your transport rules. We'll take a look at what transport rules are, what to plan for, and we'll even do some demonstrations on getting transport rules set up. Okay, so I keep saying that transport rules are the thing. I mean, it's just these are the thing. Well, let's talk a little bit about planning your transport rules. We'll do some demonstrations. It'll be fun. So, first of all, let's kind of talk about this. You know that you have a role out there, your mailbox role, that has the transport on it. Now, in Exchange 2010, we used to refer to this as the hub transport, but here's your transport. Now, any mail message that crosses this, and you know that all mail messages are going to cross a transporter, whoop, whoop. This is the transport pipeline, and there's an agent that's running here, a transport agent. And what happens is this little agent, and I'm just kind of drawing a little, okay, so it's a little blob, okay, that's that's what the agent's going to be. This little transport agent, what's going to happen is that he's going to check to see if there's any rules that apply to this message and run against this message. And those rules, like as you'll see, can be, you know, whatever we want to do. We want to drop the message, we want to, you know, moderate it, whatever it is that we want to do. So all email is going to go through these transport rules, and what you're going to do is you're going to build a list of these transport rules. Now there's a couple of things to keep in mind, and I just want to kind of throw this out at you right now. These transport rules, these are all stored, like most configuration settings of Exchange, are stored in Active Directory. Now I want to kind of throw this out to you because I've actually run into this a couple of times. It's stored in Active Directory, and I have to tell you that if something should go wrong with your rules, like if you have a rogue admin or something like that should like delete or mess up your rules, things like that, recovering these rules in Active Directory is really hard to do, okay? So I want to kind of give you kind of a freebie out of it. Well, it's not a freebie, but this is actually something that's kind of cool. Take a look, if you want to get a copy of these, of your transport rules, and you want to get a backup of these transport rules, do me a favor and look at the commandlet, and what I'll do is I'll pull it up on screen too, is export dash transport rule collection. I can't get the whole word on here. Collection. I'll show it to you so that you can see how, but it's export-transport rule collection, and you can export these out to an XML file, and then if you need them, you can bring them back in. You can import them. This is a great way to do a little backup of your transport rules. So you have a backup of them, because if you have a lot of transport rules, the last thing you really want to do is lose them, especially if somebody goes out there and messes with them. Boy, I hate when that happens. I do want to give you a warning though. If you re-import the transport rules, it doesn't add to existing, it overwrites everything that's out there. So this is a backup that does a full recovery. You just kind of want to think about that as you're setting up your transport rules. Now, some of the planning things you want to think about when you're starting to create transport rules. There's the big question mark. So let me put the big question mark here, is what is it that you need the rules to do? And over the next few minutes, you're going to get more and more comfortable with selecting what you want these rules to do. So what is it that you want these rules to do? These rules are caught by a condition. Whatever condition we set up. Now there are exceptions that you can put in, but we're going to create whatever conditions are going to trigger that this rule happens, and then whatever actions you want this rule to take. These are kind of things you kind of need to start to figure out ahead of time. This is that compliancy piece, that do you have a list of things that you need to make sure do not happen with your email? Now, once you've determined this, and we can specify conditions and actions, well, we can go and just start making rules. But please be really careful about this. Now, let me tell you, in Exchange 2010, boy, did I screw this up a couple of times. When you apply a rule, make sure you test the rule. Can I just say that again? I know you're sitting there going, yeah, I know to test. I know to test. But let me just say, please test. Please test the rules first before you turn them loose. In Exchange 2013, you actually are provided some neat policy tip ways of testing your rules before they apply. And I'm going to show you how this is great for not only testing, but warning your users about the future that they're about to face. But yeah, you want to make sure you test these rules, because I've run across this before where an admin, I've even done this where you put in a rule that may block or drop a particular email. You may have specified something incorrectly, and all of a sudden you're dropping a bunch of stuff. So make sure you test the rules as you're setting this up. So now, if you also are planning for like limitations to deal with things that are encrypted and digitally signed, we'll talk about those things when we do the video on ADRMS together, because that'll be what ADRMS will help us, and some things to look at. So let's go do a rule. Okay, for our first excursion into transport rules, and keep in mind, you want to refer back to the Greg Shields video for details on transport rules, but there are a few little tips and tricks that I want to show you, and hopefully get some creative juices going. So first thing I want to show you is, yep, that's right, I brought up the the management shell. Really, let me clear the screen here. What I wanted to show you was, if you get help on transport, you can see all of the commandlets. So you can do all of this with commandlets. As a matter of fact, oh, remember when I was talking about the export transport rule collection? Right there it is. Look, right there. Oops, he's scrolling by. But you can see all of the commandlets that you can use for creating, viewing, editing, all of your transport rules, everything that you need. And I just kind of wanted to show you this one. I was export transport rule collection, and keep in mind, if you're working here with the PowerShell stuff, you can just get help on export transport rule collection and give me an example. And I think example number one in this case is, let me scroll up to it. Yeah, example number one, great example for you to export your transport rules. Yay! So get help on transport, you can get all the commandlets. And here was that particular one that I was showing you to get a backup of your transport rules. Well, let's go ahead and minimize him. I'm going to show you this graphically because I think it makes more sense graphically than if you want to use PowerShell for it. You certainly can. So here's, I'm in my Exchange Administration Center, and I'm going to go down to Mailflow. That's where the rules are. And you can see right now I don't have any rules. Now, you're getting really used to these buttons, I'm sure, by now, but the plus button will let me add a new rule. But I want you to notice it's got a drop down arrow here because there are some templates out there. Now, you can create these. You don't need these templates. You can do this all by yourself. You don't need any of this. But I'm going to use one of the templates just to kind of show you. It helps you already pre-fill things out. So let's say, for an example, I've identified that we want to have a corporate disclaimer. Maybe you want a disclaimer based upon department or a particular user. You have full control for that. Well, there's this apply disclaimers. Oh, nice little template for me. And I'll maximize this screen. Comes up. Let's give a name to this rule. Let's call this, I'm going to pick on a particular user, so I'm going to call this Bob's disclaimer. Disclaimer. Did I get close to spelling it? Oh, okay. So apply this rule if. Select one of the following. And if you've been through the transport rules, you have a lot of options in here. They can be particular senders, recipients, groups, all kinds of criteria that you're specifying. I'm going to say the sender is, and I'm going to pick Bob Smith. The reason I'm going to pick Bob Smith is because I've already signed into his email on a different machine. What I like about the templates is they kind of already preset up. Do the following, append the disclaimer. Now, I could hit the drop down and start doing other things, but no, I use the template, append the disclaimer, so it's already set it up. Enter the text that you want it to do, and let's see, let's do that kind of corporate thing. There'll be a line, and then let's just say this is the disclaimer, and it's important. Yeah, I know, not really creative, but you get the idea. Now, I'm not quite done yet, because notice what it says is I've got my message in here, and fallback action. See, different transport rules will have different criteria that they need to follow, and one of these is, think about this, what if I can't add the disclaimer to a particular email message? What do you want me to do? And that's what it's saying. What's my fallback action if I can't add the disclaimer? And you get a couple of options, and these are specific to disclaimers. Wrap means that what it's going to do is take the original message, shove it inside of a brand new email so that it can stick the disclaimer on it. So it's going to wrap it with a new email. Ignore and reject, well, you can imagine ignore means, well, just send it anyways. And reject means don't send it, but let the sender know that, hey, I couldn't do this. So I'm just going to say wrap right now. Now, properties of this rule. Now, I got to be honest with you. Every time a disclaimer is added, I really don't want this rule audited. So I'm going to turn off the audit level for this because I don't need it audited every single time it adds a disclaimer. I'm expecting it to do that. Here's one of the things that I really like about transport rules, and this is one of my tips. Oh, remember earlier I said rights management services is a premium feature, and you can use that. We'll do a video on that. That's going to be cool. Here's one of the things that I really like. Oops, and I hit the more button. That's okay. That I really like about Exchange 2013 and how they set this up. Now I hit the more button, and so you can see that some things got added here. I've got, woo, it's out of control. Wait a minute, my mouse just went out of control. Hang on. As you can see, I've got options here where I can add additional actions, and I can put in exceptions if I want. So remember I was saying you always have a condition, but you can always add exceptions to that. And here's the action that I'm going to be taking. That's what a transport rule is. Now the properties of the rule, I removed the auditing because I don't want to audit every single time it adds a disclaimer. This is the mode that I like most of all down here. By default, it's set to enforce, which means if I hit save, this rule goes into effect right now. However, we've got a couple of testing options, and there's two ways to think of this. It's both about testing and both about warning. Well, both about? Yeah, it's about testing and it's about warning your users about what's going to happen. So look at this, policy tips. You know how you get those little mail tips? Yeah, when you're in email, you can get mail tips. Well, that's what these are. And so test with policy tips means we're just going to say that we're doing this rule. We're not actually going to do this rule. In other words, we won't take the action, but we're going to give a policy tip to the user. This is a great way to let users know that a new compliancy feature is going to occur. And so you might say, well, you know, in 6 months, this rule is going to take effect. I want to start warning users now that what they're doing is going to fall under this rule. So it gives them a little policy tip that says, hey, you're going to be falling under this rule. Now, for me, if I'm just testing stuff, I want to be able to make this rule, test it, see what happens. I'm going to do test without the policy tips. This way it doesn't alert users to what's going on. And remember how I said that you might want to do this test with policy tips and then activate this rule? Well, looky, you get, when you hit that more button, you get this rule will be active on the following date, and you can deactivate the rule. It's pretty cool what you can do with this. They've given you a tremendous amount of features, and I really love this whole policy tip thing. Well, for what I'm going to do right now for this disclaimer, we've just added a compliancy for disclaimer. I'm going to say enforce it just so you can see it. You probably have already done disclaimers yourself. I just want you to see that here's a disclaimer for Bob, and in fact, I'm going to flip over to Bob. We'll test it here real quick. Here's Bob's email. See, there's Bob. There's Bob. And let's see, new email. And you can tell I use my phone for email a lot because, hey, have you seen the OWA on your phone? Have you, by the way? I love OWA. I love OWA with a passion. You look at it on your phone. It looks just like an application. It's so cool. Anyways, if you haven't done that, I'm going to send this to administrator, and I'll say test message from Bob. And I'll go ahead and say send. And so Bob's message is going to, whoops, it went pretty quick. Let's go over here and we'll go back to my email. And let me go over to OWA. Okay, so OWA, we'll see. It'll take it a second here, and Bob's email will pop on in. Yay, there's Bob's email. And looky, I'm going to click on it, and this is the did I spell that right? Okay, this is the disclaimer, and it's important. I said it was so. So notice my transport rule has worked magnificently. Yeah, I know, you're not all that impressed. But now let me show you some of the other things that you can do here. Let me go back to the ECP, and we'll take a look at a couple of other things that we can do with our transport rules. So I wanted to show you something about transport. Let me go back into the transport rules here. that I think is really cool, and it's something that I want to encourage you to explore and to spend some time with. Because a lot of people, they look at the basic transport rules and they're like, well, it doesn't really do that much for me. Let me give you an example. I'm going to go into New and just create a new rule. And let me maximize this screen. Now, if you take a look at this screen here, well, we've kind of already seen this, right? Apply this rule if. Let's see, the sender is, the recipient is located, sender is a member of, subject or body includes, and you know, there's not that many options here. The sender is, let's use that as a quick example. Sender is comes up with a list of people that I could pick. Okay, well, that's not all that impressive. Well, here's the thing that a lot of people miss. This is kind of like the simplified version. If you're working with compliancy options, you need more flexibility. So here's what they did. A lot of people miss this. Looky, see this thing that says more options? Yeah, you showed us that. I know. But look, besides what I've already shown you, see how, yes, you can add additional conditions. Oh, wait a minute, additional, you can add additional conditions. Yep, that made sense. So more than one. You can add multiple actions, put in exceptions. You're saying, I know you already showed us that just a second ago. And this is where, you know, you could set the, you know, the dates on when this rule activates and when it deactivates. But look at what happened inside. So I'm going to go to add condition. Look what happens inside. Let me hit the drop down. Look, see, now we've got these little triangles, and there's more options here. So the sender is this person, or is external or internal, or is a member of the group. The address includes any of these words or has a text pattern. We can do regular expressions for this, guys. This is amazing about a flexibility that you can have for your transport rules. In fact, I tell you what, let's build a new rule. And we're going to test it again with Bob, but instead of the sender, let's go down here to, let's choose subject or body. Includes any of these words. So what words or phrases? Let's say the subject or the body includes, my name is Bob, and I'll add that. And let's do, I don't know, have a nice day. We'll do nice things like that. Say, okay. Now, what do you want to do with these? And what we're going to do is, what we'll do is something that you can see. So let's see, forward to it for approval. Oh, look at the options. See, even in your actions, we now have those little triangles that give you multiple options that you can do with it. This is much more than what you had before. So let's see here. Let's apply a disclaimer. No, we just did that. Let's modify the message. No, let's prepend the subject line. So if we detect any of that, prepend this by saying, got it. So does that kind of make sense? It's not really the greatest rule in the world, but if a subject or body has either of these phrases, I want you to prepend the subject with got it. And we'll try out this rule. So let's say save. And let's go over to Bob. Oh, wait a minute, we still have Bob's disclaimer rule. Okay, that's okay. We can still, it'll be fun. And so I'm going to, here's Bob, and new email. And we're going to send it to administrator. And the subject is hello. And I'll say, my name is Bob. How nice to meet you. And we'll hit send. And we'll go back here and see what happens here. And it'll take it a minute to go through. We'll go back to my email. We'll see what happens. This will be fun. This will be fun. Let's see, OWA. And we'll go into my email. And that was the original message we got from Bob. We should get the next one here any second. And it just popped in. Oh, look at what it did to the subject. See, got it. Yeah, see it. So it saw that, my name is Bob, and, oh, got it. Oh, see, that's pretty cool. So one of the ideas here is to take a few moments and to explore the capabilities of the rules and what you can actually do with them. I think that what you'll find is you might be surprised if you were to sit down for like an hour and try out or test, and do it in a test environment, right? Don't do it in production, but go into Mailflow and actually go through and try out some of the different rules. Here's what you're going to find is now you're going to be aware of what things you can do for the compliancy requirements that you're running across that your company needs. In other words, if somebody says, well, can you add a disclaimer to all the emails? Well, now you know you can. Can you do this? Can you do that? Now you know that you can. So it's worth going in here and taking a few minutes with the rules. Now there's a couple of other things that along these lines with transport rules that I want to talk about. Then I want to show you something really cool. Now, I want to show you where getting comfortable and familiar with all of the capabilities of your transport rules can really pay off when all of a sudden issues come up with compliancy. Let me give you an example here. I'm going to create a new group here first real quick. Let's make a distribution group. And I'm going to show you a typical business problem everybody runs into. Let's call this the fun group. And the fun group. And in the fun group, let's add some members to the fun group. Members that we will add. We'll add the fun people to the fun group. Administrator's not one of them. And I'm going to maximize and say OK. And I'm going to maximize this window and say save. And I've got my new distribution group. Now, you probably, I want you to think about this. Pretend for a second that this is a distribution group that has like 10,000 people in it. You probably don't want people just sending stuff to this group without it being moderated. You don't want people to send pictures of their pets or stuff like that to a group that has 10,000 people in it. So you can set up moderation for your groups, and so you go in, you edit the properties. If you watch the Greg Shields videos, you know this. So you can go in there, you can go into message approval, and I want messages sent to this group to be approved by a moderator, and I'm going to add a moderator. Let's add in administrator. I'll maximize this and say OK. And now I've got a moderator for this distribution group. Yay, big deal, right? And actually that is a big deal. But here's the compliancy issue that I'm going to throw out. I don't have a problem with this group moderation, but here's what my issue is. I have some users that have access to extremely sensitive information. When they send email, I want them to be able to freely do it to anybody internally, but when they send email going outside, I want that to be moderated or approved before it goes out. See how all of a sudden this compliancy issue has popped up, and it has nothing to do with the distribution group. This is where transport rules save the day. So let's go to mail flow, and let me show you what we can do here. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to create a new rule. And it's to the point now to where anytime I go in here, I just hit more options because I want to see everything. And I'm going to maximize this on the screen here. And I'm going to give this rule a name. And let's call this the moderator rule for right now. Now what I'm doing is I'm creating something that's referred to as a moderated transport. And what it means is the transporter is going to be helping me with the moderation. So this involves all of the components of the transporter service, the categorizer, and something called the arbitration mailbox that I'm going to talk about in a second here. So what I'm going to do is set up this rule. And right now I'm going to keep this rule pretty simple just so you can see that it works and how it works. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to say the sender is, I'm going to pick on Bob once again because I've got his email up. And so it's going to affect Bob. And here's what I want you to do is do the following. I want you to forward this message, forward the message for approval to these people. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to select administrator. And so we'll say administrator. Let me maximize and save this. And now what's going to happen is that when Bob sends an email, now I can put in an exception. Okay, so I could say, if the recipient is internal, external, I can specify my exceptions to this rule. In this case, like I said, I'm going to just keep it pretty simple. What happens is when Bob sends a message, it's going to get forwarded to approval. Where it's going to go into an arbitration mailbox until it gets approved. And I want you to see what this kind of approval looks like. So let's save this rule. And we're going to have Bob send an email. Yeah, let's have him send an email to Greg Shields and see if we get this puppy to work. So let's go over to where Bob's email is. And we'll have him send a new mail message. So new mail, new mail, new mail, new mail, new mail. Come on, click it. There it goes. And let's see. Bob's going to send this to Greg Shields. Now, Greg Shields is a pretty busy guy, so I want this moderated. You know, don't want to bother Greg. You know, he's a very busy guy. So pictures of my kids. Actually, Greg would probably like to see, yeah, because he's also a real nice guy. So, but let's just go ahead and say this is not important. Good enough for, yeah, good enough. So I'm going to send this. Now remember, it's coming from Bob Smith. It's going to go to Greg Shields. I'm going to hit send. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change over to my administrative email box here. So let's go back in the ECP. Let me go to OWA. Did I tell you about that application on your phone? OWA on your phone? Oh, man, that is awesome. Okay, so let's go into my email here. It'll pop up here in a second. There it is. So let's see here. So from Bob Smith, looky. Let me click on it. See right here? Microsoft Exchange. Wow, it'd help if I could make my screen. Here's the attachment, pictures of my kids, that's that. And notice I now need to, it says please respond, so I need to approve or reject this. If I approve it, off it goes to Greg Shields. If I reject it, then it doesn't go anywhere. Isn't this cool? This is that moderated transport. Now think about all of the options. I'm going to reject it because, you know, no, edit the response. Oh, you're not important enough for Greg. No, I'm not going to say that. That's not true. Greg's a really nice guy. So I rejected the message. But think about the importance of being able to do this. Being able to have moderated transport, all those conditions that you can set this up for, all those different people, all of those things that you can do because you're doing it with transport rules, really make it pretty amazing. Well, you know what? I have this feature I am just dying to show you that I don't know if you've seen that really helps with your compliancy. So let me go show you that feature. Okay, I have this really cool feature I'm just dying to show you, but I'm not going to show you yet because there's one other thing I need to show you before I can show you the really cool feature I want to show you. Yeah, that's right. No, actually, I just want to point something out with transport rules. You know, you're not limited to only what these transport rules have in them. You can add your own message classifications. Now, message classifications are something that, you know, Exchange folks will argue back and forth on whether it's worth setting up or not. First of all, it's not done through the graphical. You got to do it through the shell. Second of all, what a message classification is you're adding your own metadata to an email message and basically creating a tip that will pop up for the users. And it's not necessarily easy for this. It works fine in OWA, but there is, with Outlook, certain versions of Outlook, you got to make some registry changes to get these message classifications to pop up. And really what it is a message that might say like, you know, this email is for internal use only, so that a recipient, when they get the email, they see this message on it. Now, just let me kind of show you real quick. If you want to take a look at message classifications, first of all, there are some default ones that are already in the system here. Let me do get message classification. Things like attachment removal. In other words, we'll give you a message if an attachment got removed, kind of thing. Now, you can create your own. There's a commandlet, new message classification, and let me just do one. Let's just call it, I can't spell confidential, so I'm just going to call it confident. Oh, wait a minute, maybe I can. Oh, there we go. We're going to call it confidential, and we'll give it a display name of corp confidential. At least close enough, I know. And I'm going to put in a sender description. This, oops, I'm going to need quotes around this. This is for internal only. And the the sender description. This displays the intent, basically, of the classification to the person sending it. And I can also put in a recipient description that displays to the recipient what it should be. So I can do a recipient description. Now, here's the reason why I'm showing you this. If you decide to use message classifications, which is an option, some people do, and it kind of increases your flexibility a little bit. If you decide to use this, you apply them with transport rules. Notice it created a new one called confidential. And you can do this with a transport rule. And I'll go out to new transport rule, create a new rule. And once again, we'll just call this one classification. And I'll go and apply this rule once again to Bob. And we're not going to fully test this one, but I just wanted you to see that do the following. Oops, I'm going to need, I think I have to have more options for this. And modify the message properties, apply a message classification. So if Bob is, in this case I'm applying it to Bob, apply a message classification, and there it is. There's my Corp confidential classification that I can apply to it. So in that case I'm creating a rule to apply to this metadata in the messages that you've set up that you might want to have added. Okay, but now I'm going to show you the really cool thing, right? Okay, I'll show you the really cool thing. Finally, we got classifications done, we got moderation done, we got digging in deeper into the transport rules done. Now for one of my favorite things of compliancy. Messaging compliancy, all of the compliance stuff that you have to work with, you're going to end up building this giant list, or somebody's going to give you a list of what the rules are, man, and what you got to go in there and you got to put all of it in. Well, I want to show you something. I really like this. This is a feature in 2013. I'm going to kill off all of the other stuff that I've made. So because I want you to see what's going to happen here. I'm going to kill off Bob's I guess I didn't really have to delete these, but I'm going to delete them anyways, just so you can see it. So everything's a transport rule when it comes down to compliancy. Boy, that's the way my brain seems to, put things in. But let me show you one of my favorite features in compliancy management. You probably have already noticed this giant thing over here that says compliance management. Well, looky, data loss prevention. Data loss prevention to me is, I just love this. I'm going to go out and I'm going to select, because what they've done is they've put in a lot of templates. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, you can create your own custom templates. This is great. You can import templates. So if, let me give you an example. If you have a legal compliancy in your industry and somebody has created a template, you can import your own policy template for this. But I'm going to use one of the existing templates because I want you to see this. I'm going to put in a name and I'm going to call this legal. Give it a description and choose the template. Look at this list. Look at all of these pre-created things that have been already created for you. And I'm going to go down and let's go to US and let's grab, I love to use HIPAA as an example, but look at all of the different compliancy rules that have already been created for you. Now I'm going to click Save, and I want you to see what happens. So here it is, in compliancy management, data loss prevention. I've applied this thing. Now you can go in and notice right now it's testing without policy tips. Remember we talked about that? You can go in here and you can change that so you can test with policy tips and then enforce it. Now the reason that the default here is not enforced is a good thing, because look at what it's actually making. Let me go back here. Look, rules. They're all transport rules. It's not just one transport rule, though. Depending upon what template you pick, there could be several different transport rules. And so the idea is that this could start causing an effect on your email system, right? With mails not being allowed to go in or out. So it's put into a test mode for you to test it. And what I like to do is I like to test it myself, then have it set to policy tips where users get a warning that this is going to go into effect, and then bingo, turn it on and make it go into effect. I think this was a brilliant idea. If I could meet the person and shake their hand, because this has become really flexible, and this has made it really easy for a lot of people to add in their own. Now, of course, you can, like I said, create your own custom ones, which is multiple rules, but you can go in now and select, I'm going to add in another one. Another one, just because I like these things so much. And maybe I'm under, let's see, where's the credit card one? That's another one. Oh, my mouse is out of control. Come here, mouse, 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 mouse. There we go. U.S. Oh, there's the U.S. Patriot Act. I know a lot of people that fall under that. So you HIPAA, Patriot Act. Oh, look, Social Security confidentiality laws. Oh, awesome. I'm going to pick that and save that. And so now I've got, Social Security law implementations. Now you can go into these and edit them. And if I click on rules, it'll show you the rules here. You don't have to keep flipping back to the mail flow section to look at the rules. And there's information in the rule here that it shows you, so you can, here's what's going to trigger it, the condition and the action that it's going to take, and if there's any kind of exceptions to it. So it's a quick way for you to be able to look at and work with the rules. I mean, come on. This is like, for compliancy, this is like totally awesome, especially being able to import. Well, there's one other thing I wanted to show you, and then we'll wrap this guy up. When you're talking about transport security and all of this compliancy stuff, a lot of folks, they have a tendency to forget about this one right here, journaling rules. And that's the last thing that I want to show you in this particular video. Now, first of all, it depends on whether your company is required to journal or not. Journaling is where you're going to make a copy of all of your email messages, and either somewhere on your network, or usually it's required that you send it to a location outside or off from your network that you can't get your hands onto. It's going to store a copy of all of your emails. That way, if there's some kind of legal issue or something like that, there's an entire copy that can be audited and looked through and examined. Now, journaling is like I said, required by some people. They have to do it. Some people don't. But a lot of people have a tendency to confuse this with archiving. And a little bit later on in the course, we're going to talk about archiving. We're going to talk about retention policies and retention tags and why you would archive and how archiving works. And really what it comes down to is a very simple definition of this is archiving is messages that you still want available to your users. You just don't want it in their inbox. The inbox that's running on your high-speed, disk storage that we've been talking about was we were doing earlier planning. Maybe we want to move that off to slower speed storage, but we still want it available to the users. Well, that's different than journaling. Journaling is where we want to take our messages and store them where, for legal reasons, could be looked at later, and me as administrator should not have control or access to it. Well, journaling is something that's been around since Exchange 2007, and so if you are in a requirement or a compliancy situation where you have to journal, it's still here, and you can still use it. And I'll just set one up here, set up a rule here pretty quick. So you want to put in the address, the email box that you're going to journal to, and I'm going to administrator, and the name of the rule, my journal rule. And this doesn't have to be, by the way, notice that, this is an internal mailbox for me. Doesn't have to be internal at all. It can be external. What if the message is sent or received from, you can do a specific user or group or apply it to all messages. A lot of companies like Sarbanes-Oxley, that kind of thing, that fall under a compliancy option for this. It'll be all messages, and journal the following messages, all. And then you can hit save. And do you want to apply this? You betcha. Now, as you can see, I've got a journaling rule. And let's go ahead and we'll try this real quick so you can see this. I'm going to do, I'm over here at Bob, and Bob's going to send something to Greg again. And it's going to say, hello. Oh, no, wait a minute. If I send it to Greg again, then I have to go through. Oh, no, I deleted those rules. Thank God. I didn't want to have to go through and approve it all again. Hello. So we'll send. And let's go over to the administrative email box, and OWA. And so here come my my journal, my my journaling stuff is coming in here. So here's the journal that came in. There's the actual message that was attached. This is the journal report that gets sent. And if you've worked with journaling before, like I said, from Exchange 2007 or 2010, it's pretty much the same thing. Difference, of course, being is that it's a little bit easier to set up. Actually, the rules are pretty easy to set up. And with journaling, once again, you can send it to an external mailbox, which is what most people have to do, or if you're doing it internally. Keep in mind, again, this is part of your compliancy, so journaling may or may not be a requirement for you. It's something to look into as part of your planning. And there is, and I'm sure you know the difference, but you know, help out a fellow admin, make sure they understand the difference between journaling, which we as admins are not supposed to be touching and messing with, as opposed to archives, which, you know, that's a good thing. Archives are things that users will be using quite a bit, and which we'll talk more about as we go through the rest of the course. Well, you know what? We've done a lot of stuff on the transport security. Let's take a look at all of the things that we covered. When it comes to transport security and all of the compliance options, in my mind, it breaks down to two different kind of issues. One is it breaks down into the identification side, identifying what compliance requirements I have, and then planning and implementing those. And so, you know, we spend most of our time with transport rules and how to dig deeper into those transport rules and find out what's available to you. If you know what the product will do for you, it makes it a lot easier to answer the question of, you know, when somebody says, well, we have this new requirement, can you do this? Well, the answer is yes. And also, we spent some time on message moderation and actually the moderation transport, which is different than group moderation. This is a lot more flexible, gives you a lot more features. You can set up exceptions to this to get granular control of when you want to have moderation. And we talked about journaling. Don't forget, that's part of your compliancy. And like I said, some people, they are required to journal to external resources. Some people are not required. That's something that you want to identify. And I think for me, this is where there are two sides to this coin and where everything kind of breaks down is the planning and implementation. That's kind of a technical piece, right? That's a technical piece that me as a messaging pro, I can definitely deal with. I can grab my hands onto it. The harder piece for me has always been, you know, it's always been this guy. I'm trying to grab a different color. It's always been this, the identification part. It's really easy if somebody says, you fall under the following rules, make sure that, you know, this has been implemented. As opposed to when you're working with a company where they don't necessarily fall under a set of laws already, but they want to implement good compliancy. Well, now you have to go through and start to make decisions. And those decisions, really, you shouldn't be making them alone because there are legal issues involved in this, as we talked about. And so, again, there's usually a group of people to decide what compliancy options are. The more you know about what the product will do and how to do it, especially, you remember my favorite thing? Oh yeah, DLP. What the product will do and how it'll help you do it, then it becomes easier to answer this question. And it's easier to have those meetings and it's easier to come up with the planning and design of what your compliance should be. So Exchange 2013 has great set of tools for compliancy in it and for your transport security. Well, you know what? I think, yeah, I'm checking my list. I think we're all good. So we're good on this video. So I hope that this video has been informative for you. And I got to tell you, I want to thank you for viewing. Can't wait for the next one.